Filter Optional. I am Chico West.
And I'm Shannon West.
And it's an exciting day today, Shannon.
It is. It is an exciting day. We get to really do something that we care about and promote something that we care about.
Yes. And on Filter Optional today, it's, April 29th.
Yes.
We're still shelter in place, but actually, we have some people on Zoom. We did this episode a few days before, but it's exciting to be me being the no filter. So you're going to have to keep me in check because we have 3 ladies joining us. And so you being the filter in the Filter Optional, I'm going to need some help.
Well, we have 2 judges
I know.
joining, so they can keep you in line. I have no fear of that. Yeah.
That is for sure. So this episode is really our first time to do something. This whole episode is dedicated to really informing people about some great stuff happening here in Dallas County. And it's called Family Legacy Court.
Or Legacy Family Court.
Or Legacy Family Court.
Yes.
Exactly. I said it wrong.
It's called Legacy Family Court, and you were supposed to be the keynote speaker, believe it or not, for their
fundraiser today,
yes,
April
today.
29th.
And so we want to bring Legacy Family Court to you so that they can still have their needs met and tell you a little bit about it. And I think that just listening to the testimony is going to inspire.
Yes. I mean, and it made me think of a lot of stuff that I did early on in my career. And so, let's get right to it. I want to introduce all 3 of the women that are joining us today.
Yes.
First, let's start with Judge Lee. Judge Lee is on the phone with us. You want to share a little bit, Judge Lee, about who you are and what you do?
Hello. My name is Jean Lee, and I am the judge for the Dallas County Legacy Family Court, and I'm also the associate judge of the 302nd District Court in Dallas County as well.
All right. Well, Thank you. And then Judge Callahan.
Hi there. Thank you, Chico and Shannon, first of all, very much for doing this. My name is Tina Callahan, and I was the presiding judge of the 302nd Court from 2007 until my retirement at the end of 2018. I currently sit on the board of the Legacy Family Court Foundation.
Well, thank you. And then we have Claudia.
Hi. I'm a participant in the Legacy Courts and a graduate.
Awesome.
Well, I'm excited. Judge Callahan, you were at the beginning when this started. Can you give us a little history of what Legacy Family Court's all about and stuff like that?
Sure. When I got on the bench in 2007, the first year I was on the bench, it was sort of like drinking from a fire hose, trying to get all the information down. I knew when I got on the bench that these family drug courts existed. We had lots of criminal drug courts, diversion courts, diverting people from being incarcerated if they went through a certain program, if they were successful, graduating and have any charges expunged. I knew there were family courts that did that, but I didn't know a lot about it. In 2008, I went to a conference in Baltimore, right outside of DC, for the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, and it blew my mind. This was exactly what Dallas needed, and it took, because it was such a laborious process, and there were no other family drug courts in the North Texas area. There was one in East Texas, there was one in El Paso, there was one down in Austin, there was one in San Antonio, but there were none around here. I sort of had to, working with a lot of other people, help create the court. So the court got started, I think it was maybe November or December of 2011. And by the time we had our first participant, I'm going to say that was March of 2012. So that was when the court got started here in Dallas County. It is a court itself, but it isn't one that was created by the state legislature. The courts themselves are a part of the law in Texas, but the counties are the ones that have to decide that they want those courts in their county. So Dallas County had a lot of criminal courts, they just didn't have a family court.
Mm-hmm.
So is this similar to like Wilmer down there, interventions, the drug court that? Is that where, I know about that being in the field.
Right.
And I went down actually there over 20 years ago and got trained to do, experiential therapy, so is it similar to that where, but dealing more with families and people that have children and stuff like that? Is that what
Correct.
we're saying?
It's a specialized court within the judicial system that handles cases of child abuse and neglect that involve issues of substance use by the children's parents or the children's guardians. Now, we don't handle the cases that you would see there in Wilmer where there are criminal charges pending, because that's sort of a double use of resources, and we just don't have that kind of money. But these are cases where parents have had their children removed because of a finding of either abuse or neglect, and usually the touchstone is substance use.
Yeah.
That's great. And so I want to hear from you and Judge Lee, especially because part of the passion when Mark, contacted me about, the fundraising and stuff like that is when I really started my graduate program, I started an emancipation program for troubled teens. And so, Claudia, you can maybe respond to this, is there was this pattern. This program was in Colorado Springs. It had been around for 25 years, and it was kids that were being emancipated from their homes because of the abuse and the neglect and the drug abuse inside the families. And for some reason, we were trying to help break the cycle. Is that what, y'all are trying to do too, is help break the cycle of, these patterns happening over and over again?
Oh yeah. There's always been Child Protective Services that has taken children from homes and tried to help parents. But this particular program, it's a problem-solving program. It works specifically with the parents by identifying what the needs are, assessing what sort of substance abuse there is, what sort of needs the parents have. It provides access to treatment. It attempts to remove the barriers that may impact a successful completion of treatment, such as helping parents to develop skills to achieve recovery. It provides ongoing monitoring of parental compliance. I mean, there's drug testing constantly. I mean, Judge Lee can go into detail about what it is that she does, because she's the one that oversees that intensive judicial oversight, very similar to what you will see in a criminal drug court. But instead of the incentive being, oh, I'm going to get my case dismissed.
Right.
Yes.
The incentive is getting your children back with you.
Oh, well, I
Right.
love
Well,
that.
it gives people a sense of support too that they don't get if they're just sent out to complete their tasks, that they're
Right.
given by the court. And it's just such a great support system. And so I'm so thrilled to hear that is accessible in Dallas, because keeping the family together is the most important thing, in the world, I think, to keep everybody together. So how do you all fund this program?
Well, initially, the commissioners were more than happy to create this court because I didn't ask them for any money.
Right.
But we went to the state, and the governor, the governor has what they call a governor's grant program that uses funds that are collected as fees and costs from all of the problem-solving courts, the criminal courts here in Texas. And so there's a pool of money that the governor can draw from in order to help these family drug courts. And for years, we were able to use the governor's grant. But going back to 2008, when I was at the NADCP conference, one of the things that they talked about was funding. And they said in order to have funds, not non-discretionary funds, that you really needed to create a foundation so that there would be a vehicle to educate, to inform, and then to take in money from not only from other foundations, but from people that were just interested in this particular cause. So in 2008, 2011, when I created the court, when it was actually created by the county, I also created the foundation, or at least I got the foundation going. Other people actually did it at the time because I was still a sitting district judge.
Yes, it's a huge task. It's a huge undertaking, but that's great that you got it started.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Judge Lee, I want to bring her in, and we don't want to forget about Claudia, and we're going to have all of y'all talk. But Judge Lee, tell us how the court's set up and how you interact with all the different agencies like CPS, and then there's these attorneys that get involved, and how everybody has that same mission of kind of breaking the cycle and having that accountability, recovery, rehabilitation, and reunification. Can you help kind of describe that?
So, sure. So before a case can come into the drug court, it has to start off as a CPS case, a termination case, where the state has come in and they have filed a petition to terminate a parent's rights. And so, of course, the cases that we deal with are cases where the state has come in and they're asking to terminate rights because of drug use, addiction, drug abuse, and child neglect because of that. And so the parents are appointed attorneys. We have a wonderful, wonderful team. We have CASA, who is on the team. So we have a CASA supervisor. We have CASA advocates. We have a parenting coach who is on the team. So every parent has an attorney. The attorneys that are working in drug court are trained specifically for drug court. So they understand how the court works. They understand the expectation of the court. And they have that level of compassion because to deal with a case like this, and these cases go on for a long time. So they have to have compassion. They have to understand where these parents are coming from. There's relapse. So there has to have, there's patience, there's all of that. But we have a whole bunch of people on the team, and then we have CPS caseworker. And the caseworkers that work with the court are phenomenal. They're the same caseworkers that were with the court when Judge Callahan started it back in 2007, 2008, but the same caseworkers. So, and all they do, the only cases that they handle are drug court cases. So again, they've got experience, they've got compassion, they've got understanding, they know how to work the case. So we've got, everyone who works with these parents have experience, they have understanding, they know what's expected, they know how the case goes. And again, these cases, some of them can last up to 2 years. So it's not a case where you come in and it's done in 6-7 months. These cases can go up to 2 years, and so
and I like that it's that it's not a quick fix, because when you have addiction and other issues going on, it takes a while just for your head to clear up. I have that 90-day men's program, and then we're encouraging them to go on to kind of sober living and stuff like that. So exactly. Like when Claudia begins to speak, is I like, man, just to help build that long-term recovery, the more you can get them involved in community and accountability, and have them take that ownership, we see the success increases dramatically. And so I like that. We came in, we were sharing with you before we started this podcast that we got to see you at work with, there was the attorney for the woman in the court. There was the attorney of the two dads, two different attorneys. There was the CPS person. Everybody was involved. And I liked, the accountability and the structure and kind of that, for me, I don't know, Judge Callahan and Lee, y'all can both respond to this. I like the word kind. I'm not real big on the word nice. Kind is people speaking truth in love to you. And I just saw y'all as kind. Y'all weren't nice.
Well, and I saw it as gracious. It
Very
was just
gracious.
Because, it's easy to get tangled up emotionally but no one in the room seemed to be too tangled up emotionally. They were tangled up because they cared, but they were all so kind and gracious in dealing with who they were dealing with. Like when they had to confront when CPS had to confront about some things, she was so kind.
Yes.
about the way she confronted. And so was Judge Lee and all the attorneys. Everybody cared about the situation, and it just didn't have this divisive, angry feeling
at
it.
all, you know. And so definitely
one of the things that you learn in educating yourself about drug courts is the same thing as educating yourself about addiction. Addiction is a disease. Substance use disorder is a disease. It's not a character flaw. And so you can't get mad at somebody because they have high blood pressure.
Amen.
You can't get mad at somebody because, they have a chronic kidney problem. You can't get mad because they have a disease.
Right.
You treat people with respect, and you mirror to them the way you wish them to treat you and to deal with you, and kindness and or being nice, whatever. It really it's about accountability.
Sure.
It's all about accountability. And Judge Lee sometimes she is a little too nice. Now I'm just going to say.
Oh, yeah.
But what she is a very good role model, and she expects people to be straightforward and accountable to her, and she will be accountable to them. We don't ask of anyone who comes in there anything more than what we expect of ourselves.
I love that. So now I do, we'll get back to you, Judge Lee and Judge Callahan, here in a second. But Claudia, I want to hear about your story.
Especially this time as we're all stuck at home, and we are all having to deal with major stuff. Like I said before we went live or whatever, I said, I'm a terrible teacher. I'm a terrible parent. I'm figuring out I'm being exposed as I quarantine with my whole family. So that just shows the success of the program. I'd like for Claudia to, share a little bit about her story.
Okay, so back in 2017, I had a CPS officer show up at my house, and she didn't find any neglect. She didn't find any abuse or anything. She did ask me some questions about why my middle child was so tiny, and we got that all resolved. But I did fail my drug test, my hair follicle. And they removed my children. They gave them to my aunt, and they sent them 8.5 hours away.
Wow.
And that just probably ripped your heart out right at that moment.
I'm about to cry right now just thinking about it.
Yes, I can understand.
I was utterly devastated, and it completely pushed me over the edge. I checked out for about 3 months. And then I got dragged into court, and Judge Lee, I hate it, y'all can't see her. She's one of the most beautiful women ever.
She is. I agree with you.
I walked up, and they assigned me a lawyer and everything, and I talked to Charles, and he told me about legacy courts. But I didn't have a vehicle at the time, and he told me all the stuff I was going to have to go through. But he said it was going to be a lot easier if I went through the courts than trying to work things out with CPS on my own, and finding all the resources and everything and doing it all on my own. He told me that legacy courts would help me with that, and they would help me through rehab and everything. And just put it out there, I was in trouble for crystal meth.
And so can I ask a couple questions? I'm a therapist, and so it just is by my nature to get curious, Claudia. And so,
yes,
it was, you started tearing up about that day you failed your drug test, and your kids get taken away, and your aunt, takes care of your kids. And you said you went, I'm guessing you knew you were doing the wrong thing, but the drugs just kept pulling you back. And it sounds like what you said, for 3 months you went in a bad place. Is that fair to say?
It wasn't really the drugs that pulled me back. Honestly, it was the alcohol.
It was the alcohol? Yes. Well, I see alcohol and drugs as the same thing, but okay.
Yeah, I jumped to the bottom of the bottle where I didn't really do meth as much as I drank, but I drank a lot. And I was a bartender, so I rationalized it with that. And
you justified it, and you probably minimized it. Is that
yes,
fair?
Yes. And so when they took my kids away, I started working like double time. I was working 3 times more shifts than I was ever working. And I was drinking 3 times more than what I was. And then, like I said, I showed up for my court date and Judge Lee gave me my options. And then Charles explained to me what my options were. And then they gave me a week to make up my mind. And within that week, I had already missed Thanksgiving with my kids. I had already missed Thanksgiving and I was devastated. And I showed up and I told them that I would do it.
I love that. And so you said you went to treatment. Where'd you go to treatment?
I went to Nexus.
Oh, love Nexus.
Great, yeah.
Good. And so you did Nexus, and then so you're in the court, but you're at Nexus and you're doing your program. And so you get out of Nexus and you start showing up to Judge Lee's court. Is that correct?
Well, I was going to Judge Lee's courts for a few months before I actually got into Nexus. And basically it was calling in, drug testing and everything. And I was able to stay clean. Like I wasn't using, but I was not able to stop drinking.
Yes.
And then Judge Lee kept pressing and telling me that I had to do, they wanted me to do inpatient, but outpatient would work and everything. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it if I was outpatient. I knew in my heart, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I talked to my CASA worker and he picked me up one day after I got off of work, drove me to Nexus, and they admitted me that day.
All right. And so then you get into Nexus and you get exposed. Are you active in a 12-step program?
Yes. They detox you.
Okay.
Which didn't take that long really because I didn't need any meds or anything like that. They gave me 3 days of detox where what I had done the night before I had cleared my system, and then they stuck me in a working program where they get you on a schedule, they get you eating regularly, they get you going to classes and going to meetings and whatnot, where you have to earn everything. You have to earn the right to get to leave the campus and all that. And I think what really did it for me was when you are in rehab, Legacy leaves you alone. They don't mess with you. They don't anything. As long as you don't get in trouble while you're in rehab, Legacy leaves you alone. And for your 28-day program, they let you work your program.
Okay. And
that's
so
great.
That is good. So they step back and allow the treatment center to do its work.
Yes.
Okay. And then so you graduate Nexus. You have a plan set in place for aftercare and stuff like that. And the biggest part of aftercare was the court.
Okay, so when I got out, my plan was to go to sober living, and somewhere the ball got dropped. There was some miscommunications. I thought Natasha was going to help me. My CPS caseworker was supposed to help me, but then she told me I was supposed to get into it myself and they would help me with funding. Well, I didn't. So I ended up going back to my mother's house, which in the long run was probably the best thing for me. And as soon as I got out on a Friday, I believe it was, and I had to be in court on Monday. Because in the beginning, you go to court every single Monday. And then it's like a grace of goodness when it's every other Monday.
Yes.
But so in between there, I got out the day before New Year's. I got out New Year's Eve. And I ended up going to 3 meetings every day up until I went to court. And then I went to 3 meetings after I went to court.
Good for you.
Way to go. And so the good thing is, while you're in the court system and going through the 18 months or however long you went, if you were to say, what was the hardest part besides getting into Nexus? I mean, that was a hard part. You were trying to make that. What was your hardest part in that 18 months?
My hardest part was Well, the distance between me and my children, that was by far the hardest, but it was the distance from everything from me. I didn't have a vehicle at the time, and I lived in Grand Prairie, and the courts were in Dallas. So I was paying anywhere from $40 to $60 each time to get there and back. And all the drug testing facilities were in Dallas. Everything was in Dallas, and I was in Grand Prairie. So it was getting rides and getting there and getting back and everything.
But the thing I like, Claudia, hearing that, you were willing, what that demonstrated, and that's the essential part of recovery, is just the willingness to go to any lengths.
Right.
You know, and I like that perseverance and going to any lengths. So tell us now what it's like now that, you know, what's the hardest part now that you're not in the court system, that you're a graduate of it?
The hardest part is realizing that I have to answer to myself now. I don't have to answer to them. Like, if I didn't want contact from them or anything for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have to. Granted, I've showed up at the courthouse twice to see Judge Lee and have not been able to catch her. And I live 8.5 hours away from the courts now. I want to see y'all again.
So in a lot of ways, Judge Lee and the court really saved your life and got your kids back.
Yes. Yes.
You know, and so that's what I like. I like just that sense of, you know, breaking the cycle, because it sounds like you were in the cycle of addiction, which was, you know, your kids needed to be in a safe place. They were taken away, but it all of a sudden it broke that cycle and got you back to having your kids. And so really the court in this program helped, you know, facilitate that.
The courts in this program gave me more than just my kids back. When I went into legacy courts, I was on the outs with my mother. We had not spoke for months. My mother passed away in June.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And when she passed away, we were on the best of terms that we had been since I was in high school.
Praise God.
I was able to take care of her with a clear head and have those last months with her.
And she got to see you sober back with your kids.
Well, my mom was blind, but she got to know I was sober.
Okay. She got to experience you sober.
Yeah. While I was in legacy courts, my grandfather passed away, and they helped me work through that. Like, legacy courts puts a lot of pressure on you, but they have hearts, and they realize that there's going to be places where you can't do everything. You can't do everything right when they need you to do it.
Right.
And
okay. So let me ask. This might be more for Judge Lee and Judge Callahan, because I love your story, and I could go on talking about your story the whole time, but I want people, if they're watching this show, to give money. And I was wondering what, you know, Judge Callahan, what does the money go for if we are to raise money today for the court? How does that help? Can it help getting her Uber rides or other women and stuff like that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The funds that the foundation raises, most of them are not restricted. So Judge Lee can buy somebody steel-toed boots if that's what's standing between them and getting a job.
Yeah.
She can make arrangements with DART, the Dallas Area Rapid Transit, to buy bus passes for people to get back and forth to see their kids, to go to work if they're on a bus line. We pay for, depending on the situation, we'll pay for Uber rides. You know, sometimes that's what you need to do. We pay for the drug testing. We pay for sober living to get someone, usually once they get out of treatment, most of the time they don't have a job. They've got no money saved up. These are people that are on the fringes of poverty, homelessness. Mm-hmm. So we will pay for getting them into sober living. You know, there's usually a couple, 2-3 weeks before sober living requires them to pay for it. Well, so we help them out with that. Anything that we can do to facilitate their journey in their sobriety.
Yeah, the obstacles that get in the way of their sobriety, that besides the fact that they need to be going to meetings, they need to complete treatment, they need that accountability. Those aren't the obstacles we're talking about in raising the money. No, you're talking about obstacles if they come out of treatment, like Claudia, that doesn't have a place to live. If we can get them into a structured sober living where there's that accountability, that structure, where they might not go back to a real unhealthy environment. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. It's supporting their stability, their efforts to create and maintain stability in their lives.
Yeah, Judge Lee, is there any of the things that, if, I know you can't raise the money, you work for the court and the county, but what are the things that you see that get in the way as obstacles for these people in the court?
You mean in terms if we didn't have the financial support for them?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
Sure. So like Judge Callahan was saying, so these are real people with real life problems. And I didn't realize, the smallest thing, what I could believe to be the smallest thing, for someone in the drug court problem, it's huge, right? So getting on the bus and going to take a drug test. So we do everyone in the program is required to call and to test 7 days a week, and they're randomly drug tested up to 5 times a week. But for them, I would say about 90% of the folks in our program, they don't have transportation. So, which is something that I would just, I took for granted. But, getting a bus pass to get on the bus, to go down to the facility to do a drug test, or to go to an AA meeting, or whatever the case may be. For me, and for a lot of us, we just get in the car and we go. But for them, they don't even have the funds to purchase a bus pass. And so, and that's a huge hurdle. That's a huge obstacle. So everything that we ask them to do a lot. The team, the court supports, and we do a lot. But they are accountable. They have to do a lot as well. And so what the funding does is allows us to provide a way for them to do what we ask them to do. So if we say go drug test, if we say go to treatment, here's a bus pass. Well, I live in Grand Prairie, I live in Mesquite, there are no bus routes. Well, here's an Uber pass, or here's a Lyft pass, or whatever the case may be. So we provide everything, or we try to provide everything that they need to do what they need to do to maintain their sobriety and their stability. Sober living. It's almost like any excuse that they could try to come up with to not do something, those barriers, those obstacles, what the foundation does and what the funding does, it just helps us to be able to eliminate that. Right. I can't go to sober living. I want to go stay with my boyfriend, bad environment, bad choice. I can't go to sober living because I don't have the funds to do it. And then we just say, oh, but that's not true.
Right.
Exactly.
It allows you to do your job.
Check and we say, okay, you can go to sober living. Oh, well, I'm in sober living and they require, food, and, they don't provide food for us. Okay, well, how much food how much money do you need for food? Oh, maybe $25. Okay, here's a gift card for Walmart for $25. Well, I don't have a way to get there. Well, here's a quick trip gas card. So any excuse that they can even imagine for not doing what they're supposed to be doing, what the funding allows us to do is eliminate that, and we give it to them. Now, we hold them accountable. So if they go to the grocery store, we ask for a receipt, and we match up the numbers, and we make sure that they're actually purchasing groceries. We keep track of the bus passes and the Ubers and all that other stuff. So, so we make sure that they're using it for what they're supposed to be using it for. But, as you can imagine, they come up with excuses. And Claudia, you probably know this because you've heard it, but people come up with the craziest things, the craziest excuses. And it's such a wonderful feeling on my end over here, just to be able to say, that's not going to work, and literally pull out a checkbook and be able to write a check and say, you're going to do that. Well, I can't go to this job interview because I don't have an appropriate outfit. Okay, well, here's a check, or here's a gift card. Go get an outfit. Or I don't know how to interview. Okay, we're going to send you to go get vocational training so you can learn how to interview and how to get a job. And so, again, the funding is so incredibly important because it eliminates those obstacles. It eliminates those barriers that are real. I mean, they are real.
And so, Judge Lee or Judge Callahan, y'all can both respond to this. So some of the women that are in the program before, how they were making money was through prostitution and stuff like that. You don't want them to go back to that, lifestyle at all. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say. And, and so Claudia is a great example of this, right? So when Claudia came into the program, she was bartending. And, we all knew, and I think Claudia knew deep down inside, that wasn't the right way for her to make money. It just wasn't the right environment for her. That wasn't the right place for her to be. Okay, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's the people around her, her surroundings, whatever the case may be, we knew, and she knew that wasn't the right thing to do. So slowly we tried to convince her, but we wanted her to realize, we wanted her to understand, we wanted her to make that decision. But slowly we tried to get her out of that mind frame, like I have to bartend, it's the only way I can make money. And she did, she did. And so, she got some medical training, and she was actually able, she was so clever, gosh, just clever. She was able to actually get a job taking care of her mother. Like, she was taking care of her mother, but got paid to do it through this agency. And we were just all like, wow.
Way to go, Claudia.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. We're like, wow, you get to
and then before I knew
take care of her and get paid to do it. Like, it was wonderful.
And then before I knew it, I had 3 other patients I was taking care of.
Well, and that's great that you all of a sudden you became that truly, God's gift. You're that caretaker and stuff like that. And so the deal is, this is going to be a random question, Judge Callahan. I don't know if this was your dream because you came up with this, really spearheaded this program. Now Judge Lee is running it. But if today's episode, for some reason, we could raise a bunch of money, could we use some of that money and throw like a social gathering that's non-alcoholic with the judges and the CPS and the lawyers, and have something where all these people can get involved and really learn how to socialize sober and stuff like that? Is there something that we could do with that money that way?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we spend a lot of time educating. We spend a lot of time gathering. People, there are lots of things that we used to do to try to raise money in non-alcoholic or not, just to other ways of maintaining sobriety, a sober event or something like that. Most of the money that we use, to be quite honest with you, Chico, it's going for every last dime of it goes towards those participants in that court. We get extra money for training. We'll get money from the state for training and that sort of thing. The money that we use, like Judge Lee said, is for folks with real life problems. Yeah. And I did this because there were people in my family personally affected by substance use disorder, and in other families. And if not in your family, somebody, it happens across the board. We're all touched by this one way or another. If you don't pay for it on the front end, you're going to pay for it on the back end. Mm-hmm. Look at Claudia. She's flourishing. She's thriving.
Yes.
And she's paying taxes. We save
big
by this program, money-wise. The last time I saw figures, it might have changed. It's been several years, but every person who goes through a family drug court program, as opposed to going through the CPS system, we save about $5,000.
Yes.
$5,000.
And so you're saving money because then we're not getting the kids and putting them in foster care or stuff like that. And we're reuniting them in that regard. I mean, so giving money today really actually saves money in the long run on the taxpayer. It is a write-off. It does help women like Claudia to reunite and have, just an incredible story of redemption. I love that, Claudia, and excited for you. You get to see the fruits of that labor, for Judge Callahan and Judge Lee by working with these people, and get excited. And so it's really something that I would love to see all our listeners get involved in.
Well, we will be posting, obviously it'll appear on our Facebook page, and then we will be posting links to donating. And then, I'll probably do a link to donate for my 50th birthday. How about
Yes.
that? How about I go ahead and promise that I will choose Legacy Family Court as my charity of choice for my 50th birthday. How about that?
And
I would love
hopefully
to
we
do that.
will be out of the corona crisis.
Well, yeah. If we're not, people will still be scrolling through, and I'll say, instead of owing me, a gift later, go ahead and donate today on my actual birthday. And
I like that.
so let's raise some money.
For sure. And so Judge Lee, Claudia, and Judge Callahan, thank you so much. We really enjoyed this episode. And, Claudia, hey, praise God for everything that's happening. Judge Lee, thank you for your work. Thank you for your passion, Judge Callahan. And we are really excited for this episode and for people to give to this good cause. Thank you.
Yes, everybody stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.